In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to set up your own reference in case you want to model something. So what you're going to need to do is you're first going to have to find some good reference. So I've searched for Roman gladius. All right, I'm out here, typed in Roman gladius, I searched, I found one. I saw a couple different ones. So it really depends on which one you kind of like. Ideally, you're going to try to find reference that's straight up and down or sideways. That's two-dimensional. You don't want anything with perspective in it because it's going to be hard to model to that. It's not really going to match. Also, I would really like to stress that it's better to find reference of a real object and not something that was a digital version that was made for a game. Better for you to work from reality than someone's interpreted reality. Okay. So you want to find a good one. If you find one that you like say this is a prop one. This is kind of interesting. You know, it's at like a 45-degree angle though. Why don't I take this one? It may not be exactly the one I want, but I'm gonna, or actually, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and, let's see, which one was it? It was this one here, all right? So I'm gonna go ahead and just right click and say copy image on that. And I'm gonna go to Photoshop. Now I've copied that image to my clipboard, so I'm gonna say file new. And I just wanna make a new canvas based on my clipboard. So I'm gonna say create, and then I'm gonna say edit, paste to put that image in there. So what I'm gonna need to do is I'm gonna need to rotate this 100 or 45 degrees to get so it's straight up and down. But if I do that, it's gonna be outside the canvas. So let's go image, canvas size. I'm gonna increase my canvas size to 1024 by 1024. You're gonna wonder why is that? And that's because I always think of things in terms of those powers of two. Every time you double a number by itself starting at 1, those are numbers that you tend to make textures for games in, going from 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024, 2048, 4096, and on up. That's how all of us that make textures for games always think in those terms. So I'm going to click OK. My canvas is now larger. And now I'm going to just, I have my rules turned on. If your ruler is not turned on, go View, Rulers to turn that on. View, Rulers. So I can just hover over the ruler here and click and drag, and it's going to drag over a little line here. And what I want to do is I'm just going to come into Edit, Transform, Rotate. I'm just going to rotate this canvas. I want to try and get the sword to be as straight up and down as possible. And it may try to snap. If it does, just come in here and turn off snap. You could use the arrow keys on your keyboard to kind of nudge things. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Just try and get it close to being straight up and down. That seems kind of straight up and down. It's pretty close. So I'm going to hit Enter to complete that action. Let's select the background. And let's use our eyedropper. I forget where it is. I think it's just I on your keyboard. I'm going to select a white color there, the white pixel, whatever your background is, and then say with the background image selected, say Edit, Fill with foreground color. Okay, there we go. So there's my reference, and it's lined up straight up and down. So I kind of like that. Let's see, so next step is I'm going to image canvas size. I don't need all that dead space. And so my image is currently 1024. I'm going to keep my anchor at the center, but I'm going to adjust this. I'm going to take it down to 64 pixels. And it's going to say, it's going to, hey, it's saying, hey, wait a minute, this is going to really cut into your canvas. I'm going to say, that's okay. And that's too much. So we're going to undo that. I'll say Edit. Oops, image, canvas size, and we will do 128 and say OK. And there we go. I like that. That totally works for me. And so now I have this aspect ratio. So here it is. Here's my reference image. So I'm going to save this off. So do File, Save As. And I'm going to select Documents, Max 22, scenes, and I'm going to make a folder. And so I'm going to call it ref demo. Then inside there, I'm going to go ahead and save this as ref underscore Gladius demo. Save that. But then I actually want to come over here to layer and say flatten image, and then do file, save as, because I don't want a PSD. I actually wanted a PNG. And so I'm going to save that. And there we go. So now I will navigate to that folder, my rough demo. I'm going to actually select that PSD and delete it. And so I'm done with Photoshop at this point. So I can go to 3ds Max. So now I'm going to make a plane out here in the world. I'm just going to come in the front view in geometry. I'm going to make a plane, click and drag. And I'm going to go into movement and I'm going to center it in the world. So 0, 0. And then in modify, I'm going to make sure that it only has one length and one width. I'm going to open up the material editor. I'm going to bring over under scanline a standard legacy, right click and assign that. And then from that folder, I can drag that reference actually right in here and it's going to show up. Now, Max will always take your image and it will display it in the thumbnail as a square image. Right? That's fine. You want to right click, say show shaded material and viewport is on. So we're all set there. All right. So if I come in here to the front and turn on default shading, this is what my sword looks like. Let's right click to make the top active and move this back a little bit. So this is distorting our image, right? Like that's not the proper size of it, is it? Like our sword, right? And that's not it. And we could try and guess, but if you remember, we had a 1024, right? And so if I say put this at like 100 units wide, and so if it's 1024, that was 120, I think it was, let's try changing this to 1000. I believe that's the proper aspect ratio, right? Doubling that up. So that looks correct. Now, how large was a Roman gladius? Right? That's a question we want to ask ourselves. And so we come in here, Roman gladius, I'll just change this to length. And if we go to all, you'll see right up here, a lot of times you'll get lucky, and if it's something that's kind of common, it'll tell you that the overall length here was 60 to 85 centimeters, all right? And so what we can do is here under geometry, I'm going to create a box, or actually, yeah, I'm going to make a box. Click and drag, oops, click and drag, and then we actually need to drag a little bit to make the height. So for purposes of our demo, why don't we just make another plane? Go to modify, and then make sure this thing is zeroed out in the world. And what did I say? It was 85 units. So we'll make a long one. So we'll just put this at 85. All right, that's the wrong one. Actually, yeah, there you go. So this is what the height would be, right? In real world units, right? Because if you remember, each one of these is 1 meter. So if we want our sword, we're going to want its origin to be right here, centered in the world. I'm going to move that box up, or that plane. That plane represents the size of our object. So I'm just going to select my reference, right click and go into scale, and I'm going to scale it down. Let's just kind of select this guy, move him over a little bit, and now we can move our reference plane up and just kind of scale it until it roughly matches those dimensions. There we go. Move it up, so the tip's right there at the base. All right, so that's pretty close to the right size. All right, so now there's our sword reference. We've adjusted it, so we're going to be building it to the proper scale in the world. Let's restore our viewport. We've offset it from the background. Let's right click and go into object properties, and we're going to turn on Backface Cull and turn off show frozen in gray. That way, if we right click on it and freeze it, we still have our references visible, and as we orbit around the other side, it doesn't get in the way. Now again, having reference that's on a white background can be distracting, so I'm going to double click on the material, change the color to black, and then go into maps and reduce the diffuse value to 25 for the reference image. So there you go. Now I have it set up and it's going to be easy for me to model. I can work here in the front view off of it. But that's all the steps that are involved. The last thing, of course, is to go in and save it. The same thing, if you wanted to work on multiple planes, I'll do a separate tutorial for that, but if you're just doing something that only needs one plane of reference, this would be all you would need for that.